Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, our special guest, Judge Roy Moore. Also, the V-Team takes a look at the dope from Pope. And Governor Ivey appears to be large and in charge.
And I get down on my knees and pray every day on my own turf, on my own time. And one of the things that I pray for, Mr. Briquette, is that people with power will get good sense. And people with good sense will get power. And that the rest of us will be blessed with the patience and the strength to survive the people like you in the meantime.
Go Ivey, go Ivey, go Ivey. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hello, hello.
How's everybody doing?
Good, good. Jack, I like that tie.
Well, it was given to me.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't have any payments
Well, I
left
say
on
it's
it?
given to me. I got it at a yard sale.
Oh, okay.
They may as well have given it away.
Well, there you go. Well, it's a nice looking tie. The rest of us got the gray memo
Yeah,
this
well,
week.
we
You got the almost gray memo.
Yeah, you guys are almost twinks again.
I know.
I almost
lines.
wore my jacket just like that one, and then I didn't.
That's right.
It's
You
a
look great.
simpatico
Everybody
thing.
looks great.
Coordinating these
Everybody looks
things.
great. You know, just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water, as they used to say, something else blows up, Jack. Dr. Stuart Tankersley, a well-respected physician in Montgomery, in a three-part article with us, really exposed the underbelly of the Ethics Commission, some of the things we have known all along, like the fact that lawyers and special interests lobby the commissioners.
Well, sure. Dr. Tankersley comes, well, the Tankersley name in Montgomery is a great name. There's not a Tankersley that's not a good person. And I know Stuart Tankersley went in there to serve honorably and was surrounded by piranhas everywhere he looked. He's leaving this month. It's sad because he's the only citizen person on the Ethics Commission. The rest of them are retired judges or legislators or other hacky politicos who have disappointed us all by their rulings that really kind of undermine what the ethics laws are all about.
Beth, to that point, as Jack said, there will only be attorneys now serving on as commissioners. And it was never designed for it to be attorneys. It was a diverse group of citizens.
It should be. And if we're going to have attorneys on there, they should be bound by not just, you know, the ethics of the legal profession and the bar, but they should, I think, be bound by judicial ethics as well. I mean, when it comes to recusals and all that other stuff, I mean, there should be a standard for how this operates. And what Dr. Tankersley is coming out and saying is that there really is no standard at all. It's just a free-for-all in there.
Well, Susan, there are no rules for recusal, right? I mean, we saw that with Butch Ellis.
Yeah, they don't even operate by Robert's rules, for that matter. That's never been adopted into their system. We've seen Judge Price vote against his own conflict of interest and sit there and say, well, I know I'm doing this. We've seen, apparently a lot of the commissioners being lobbied by outside, either lawyers or commissions, to try to get influence in there. It's just a stewing pot.
Well, I mean, Butch Ellis, an attorney, sat there and listened and queried people in the Bentley hearing in closed session. We understand he did that, and then came out right before they were going to vote, Jack, and said, well, I recuse myself. What the heck was he doing sitting in there for 9 hours?
Well, I agree, and his wife is kin to Bentley, as I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong. Some connection there. But yeah, and I think Judge Price is certainly disappointed me personally because I've known him 30 years and really like him. But, you know, it's just not what it's meant to be. And, you know, to Tom Albritton's credit, he is really, I think, trying very hard to make it a very stellar group. But they're you know, going behind him every way they can. Mike Hubbard's lawyer, Mark White, over there lobbying him personally.
Yeah.
To the
I mean,
point
that's
that
just
Judge
wrong.
Fielding actually called on him during the Ethics Commission meeting and said, do you have anything further to add when we were talking about the charities issue and whether that came under the Principles Act?
Well, what happened was this Friends of McCullough's ruling, it clearly defined who was a principal, and that meant who under the ethics law in a corporation could be held responsible for illegal doings, breaking the ethics laws, and they wanted that done away with. They want principals to be free of any responsibility. So they concocted this whole thing, Beth, about that charities were being threatened. Charities were not being threatened. The law is very clear on how you can give to charities. But Mark White and these guys wanted to overturn that ruling, and they did.
Right. I mean, the whole thing, it all comes back to Hubbard. It all comes full circle around here. And, you know, we've been saying for a while the Ethics Commission is kind of a waste of money and a waste of time because it doesn't have any teeth. I mean, the Ethics Commission can rule what they want, but the AG's office can still go and do their own thing with all this. And we were talking, you know, before we came on the air about, I don't know why we can't just do it almost like a jury and just have, you know, 9 or 12 people coming out of Montgomery or all over the state and sit them down and say, okay, this is what they're trying to do. Are you okay with that? And let the people of Alabama decide, because these lobbyists and lawyers, they're not doing right by us.
I mean,
Soon to be better than what we got now, right?
They're so out of control over there that the chairman actually voted to make a tie.
Yeah, because they
He
don't.
voted, you know, it was a 5 to
that's not a
3 or
thing.
5 to 2, and then he voted to make it
Yeah,
a tie.
someone didn't show up or something.
It was crazy, but
Yeah, but in any organization ever, the chair only votes in the event of a tie.
Exactly.
Look at the United States Senate. Like, that's how this works in the
Right.
event of a tie.
well, and again, Albritton and Tankersley says this. Albritton is doing a good job, but he worries that this commission will undermine him. We only got about a minute and a half left. I want to get to this. This past Wednesday, the Ethics Commission was supposed to meet, Susan, to address issues that were brought up by Secretary of State John Merrill, where it appears that Luther Strange, our sitting senator appointed by Robert Bentley, may have violated the Fair Campaign Practice Act. But lo and behold, all of a sudden the commission puts out a little thing on the website that says, "Oh, we're holding it on on August 15th."
Highly unusual that they're doing this. And
16th.
the 16th, they're making sure it's the day after the primary and saying their excuse is that one of the commissioners couldn't be there. That's never been a problem before. So it makes me suspicious because this is the same sort of stuff that Bentley was convicted of, taking money outside the window, possibly paying people out of the wrong campaign fund. I think they're kicking this ball down the road to give Luther a chance in the primary.
Jack, you think they may have gotten some calls from Mitch McConnell?
I don't know. Well, who knows? Butch Ellis used to be a Democrat. Jerry Fielding used to be a Democrat. They both switched while they were in office. Charlie Price is an unabashed Democrat. Stuart Tankersley, I don't know his political leanings, but we know 3 of them are Democrats or have ties to Democrats. I don't know what they would have to gain by protecting Luther, but unless they want Luther to be the nominee, so there's a better chance of his losing in the general election.
But what do we do when something doesn't make sense?
Follow the money.
I'd be curious to see what money switched hands here.
I would
Well,
be too. We might be looking into that.
You'll never find out.
Well, and you're right about this one. That is a dark hole where nobody has responsibility over it. There's no oversight whatsoever. But the moving of the date to the day after the primary, to me, stinks like the back seat of a Calcutta cab.
The problem here is Bentley got ousted from office for doing the same thing that Luther's doing, and that's not complying with the Fair Campaign Practices Act.
All right, that's going to have to be the last word. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Our very special guest today is Judge Roy Moore, who's running for U.S. Senate. Welcome, Judge Moore.
Yes, sir. Nice to be with you.
We are from the same neck of the woods. We
are,
know a
Bill.
lot of the same folks. And I know I can tell you up in Etowah County, I see signs everywhere that says Judge Moore was right. So I know you got a big base. How are you feeling about the campaign?
I feel very well. We're doing very well. We've got the most organized campaign we've ever had. We've got probably the greatest grassroots support, and we've always had grassroots support, but not like this. And we've got great grassroots support. We're getting financing now, slowly but surely.
Good.
And everything's going real well. We've got a wonderful social media network. And
that's kind of where it's at now. A lot of that's going on. And I know we follow you at Alabama Political Reporter, and that your supporters, no surprise to us, are very strong. I want to ask you this. You know, I thought that you were removed from, or however they suspended you from the Supreme Court. I felt that you were treated unfairly, that this was a scam, that it was propped up by liberal interests to smear you. But putting that aside, you stepped down, and you're running for Senate. Why are you running for the Senate?
I'm running for Senate because I think it's time in our country. I think people have voted to have a change, and they're not seeing it in Washington right now. And I want to go help out. I can take a lot regarding the military. I was a military officer in Vietnam, graduated of the United States Military Academy. I know a lot about the military. I served in Europe and Asia. And I also know a lot about the judicial branch, and about judges, about courts, and about the Constitution. And the Constitution is so important to our country. It prevents us from getting into things we're not supposed to be getting into.
Right.
And it should instruct us on those things we do need to be doing, which we're not doing. So I think it's very important to understand the Constitution and what it means.
You know, you have always stood on the Constitution and your faith. Those have been the two big hallmarks, and that has just driven your critics crazy.
Well, people don't like to hear about God, but they don't understand the relevance of God. They don't understand why it's necessary, absolutely necessary, for the country to acknowledge God, to recognize the source of morality, for example. Without a source of morality, the morality depends upon whoever's in the Supreme Court. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And it also delineates the separations, why we have separation of powers and checks and balances under the Constitution, why we have the federalism principle and the 10th Amendment. So an understanding of God is very essential. And this nation was founded on the organic law of our country, which is the Declaration of Independence, according to the United States Code. And it states that we're founded on God's laws.
I think that, you know, a lot of people would like to dismiss that as an issue. But I know there's people in Alabama, by and large, feel strongly about it. I think people in the United States, by and large, feel strongly about that.
Well, let me put it this way, Bill. They feel strongly about people killing each other and drive-by shootings, and people in corruption in government, and preachers and judges and policemen and lawyers and just about everybody not being able to abide by a contract. It goes back to a moral basis. George Washington said it was virtue or morality which is the necessary spring of popular government. Who that is a sincere friend to it can look with indifference on attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric. Our foundation has been shaken. Going back to morality, the only way to get that back is to go back to God, where we learn that He created us all equally, and we're to love each other and respect each other, and that freedom of conscience which He gives does not belong to government.
Right. We have seen the conservative movement, at least here in Alabama, have a lot of corruption involved in it. Mr. Hubbard and some others have done that, even our governor, same thing. How would you restore confidence in the people of Alabama that there are honest politicians and that you are one of them, and restore the integrity of who we are?
Well, I think you have to look at what I've done in the past. I think you have to look at the fact that I stood for what I believed and what I said, and the law, and that's very important because people don't understand that what I did was legal both in the 10 Commandments and in the same-sex marriage cases. and that I lost my job over it. And I lost benefits. For 8 months, nearly 7 months, I was without pay in the judicial branch. So, you've got to look at what a person does, not just what a person says, because politicians have a real neat way of saying exactly what you want to hear.
Right.
But when they get into office, like they are in Congress, they don't do what they should do.
Right. Mitch McConnell sent word down to Governor Bentley that he did not want, when Bentley was in office, he sent down word and said, I don't want anyone from the Freedom Caucus. So that would exclude Mo Brooks, Congressman Mo Brooks. But he also said he didn't want anybody who was a firebrand. And in my world, you are just that, because you tell it like it is. You don't tell it like people want to hear it. So, McConnell, to me, is the senator from Las Vegas, because, he was elected. He barely won his reelection because the Las Vegas Sands guy got behind him and made sure he had plenty of money. I mean, is it time for guys like that who are just whatever it takes kind of guys? It's time for them to go.
I think it's people like that are controlling what happens in Congress and preventing any movement. They don't want movement. They don't want to change. And that's because they want to retain their power, their prestige, their money. I think he needs to go, yes.
We've seen a movement with President Donald Trump. People do express they want change. They want more bold action. Can you give us an example of how, if you go to Washington, what you are going to make as sort of your themes? I know, Senator Shelby, he looks at what's Alabama stuff, and then Jeff Sessions, when he was senator, he took on the big national issues. Do you have a specific
Well, I think
niche?
by looking at the national issues, you do look at the local issues.
Right.
Healthcare is a big problem. Healthcare is a big problem and growing daily as we speak, because government is not supposed to be in healthcare. It's not under Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. It is something that if we take over, it'll be a fifth of our economy. We can't even handle the economy we've got. Government is not good at handling the economy. They look at it this way: if the economy is moving, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, as Ronald Reagan said, we subsidize it. They're trying to subsidize the health system, and you think $20 trillion, which is what we are in our national debt, is going to stay that way? It is going to grow immensely. And that's going to affect our culture and our...
We got about 20 seconds left. What's your closing argument, Judge?
Well, I appreciate people going out to the polls on August 15th. It's a very important date. It's the election of the United States Senator, next senator from Alabama. And I appreciate your support and
We thank you for joining us today. Our special guest today has been Judge Roy Moore, candidate for the U.S. Senate. We'll be right back with the V and more analysis. Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. If you enjoyed our segment with former Chief Justice Roy Moore, go online and you can see an additional 5 to 10 minutes of that segment.
I'm not a fan, but
That's why he wouldn't let us on with him.
right, he didn't want us. But no, he did a good job, I thought, in his interview with you.
Yeah. Now, he actually was struggling for time. We couldn't change everything out, and I thought so, too. Susan, you know, that I am not loath to admit that I may have been wrong about a thing or two, which is very rare, of course, that I am.
I've never known you to be wrong.
Yeah,
Well, not
they
often.
don't live with you, but that's okay.
But, you know, I think, you know, we were kind of hard on Governor Kay Ivey because she disbanded all those committees and agencies or commissions, particularly the gaming task force, because we thought they were going to come forward with some solutions on this gaming issue. We have gaming in Alabama. We just need to have it done right. Well, what we're understanding out of the governor's office is that she did not want this final report that was going to look like some kind of, you know, milk toast. You can do that, or you can do this, you can do, with no clear direction or guidance. And that's now, if she's looking at clear guidance on this, I think that's a step in the right direction.
I would agree. And from what we understand, the report would have muddied the water even more, or muddied people's perception of what should be done. I think it's a positive step, maybe in the right direction, that she's wanting to take this very seriously and be make it very clear what needs to be done.
Is she going to create a new task force?
I don't know. That's a question we
let
got
me
to ask.
offer friendly advice if she does. Don't put people on it who have to stand for election.
Right.
Because they're all going to do what helps them. This gaming commission that Bentley created was never charged with, I want your answer to this problem. So they wanted to just offer solution A, solution B, solution C. That isn't what she wants to hear, and I applaud her for that.
You know, I think I'm going to convene a gaming commission right now. I move that we let the people of Alabama vote up or down on whether they want to approve a lottery. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, done. Governor Ivey, there you go.
Now we can move on.
Now we can move on. Just let the people vote. And we're hearing from people inside the administration that we don't hear anything about how she's thinking, but we hear inside the administration that there are folks that say, look, what's wrong with letting the people vote? Just put it out there. Say, we're going to create a lottery. Yes or no? You for it or you against it?
I tell you what, if she's thinking about re-election, if I were sitting in her shoes, that's exactly what I'd do.
Well, Jack, 60...
But she's still got to get it through all those crazy people over there on Union Street.
Right
That's
now,
the problem.
she has the big stick. She is, right now, polling at 64%. And, you know, she hadn't been there that long. But, you know, it's... I don't know. They want to go against her.
But I'd be curious, too, if she comes out and says, I will run for re-election, what do her poll numbers do? Because it has been shown time and time again that women's poll numbers are great when they are in office, but they tank when they seek re-election
You're
every
right
single
about
time.
that.
You know,
So I'd be curious to know what
Well, it
she
didn't
actually
work for
does.
Susan Collins, regrettably. But,
Jack, about 60% of Republican voters want a lottery of some nature.
yeah, and
So why are these bozos over here saying, well, no lottery? Oh, did they? That was, no, go ahead.
no, I mean, I totally agree. I think I heard someone called in our show, they were being polled the other night very extensively on gambling, whether you want paper bingo, electronic bingo, casino-style gambling. So I hope I can get the results of that polling and share them with y'all. But, yeah, I think by and large Republicans are, and you give people a secret ballot, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If they believe the system is honest. The reason that went down in 99, people didn't perceive that it was honest.
Right.
So, yeah, I think your suggestion is right. Kay ought to say, okay, we're going to separate the men from the boys. You guys are going to pass a bill to allow the people the right to vote on a lottery, or I'm going after every one of you in your re-election.
I agree.
I think it works. I
do
think it
too.
does. And look, even if she's not going to run, I would, you know, she would be a hero to the working people of
Absolutely.
Alabama, most of the working people of Alabama. Because you go up to Attala, where we're from, in Etowah County, and the working folks want a lottery, and the business owners want a lottery.
Democrat, Republican alike, it doesn't matter.
It's not their retirement plan. It's recreation and fun.
And it's
Right,
a
I know
way they see
people-
to solve our problems here.
Yeah, well, I know people who use scratch-offs as gift tags at Christmas, just like the dollar scratch-off cards.
Sure.
But, I mean, this also highlights a big issue we have in Alabama in that there is no way to get an initiative on the ballot without going through the legislature. So if you want to bring up gambling, in other states you can get petition signatures and get
Yeah.
something on the ballot. We can't do that here. It's impossible.
Well, that
So
goes
you
back
have
to
go through
Reconstruction.
legislature.
We don't want any carpetbaggers Speaking of carpetbaggers, your favorite carpetbagger is having his, isn't that the BCA?
Yeah, the Clear.
They're still partying
yeah.
down in Point Clear.
Point Clear.
We only got about 2 minutes. I want to get to Pope on the rope. I mean, Pope and the dope.
The dope on Pope.
The dope on Pope. David Pope, the head of security for the Alabama Department of Education, gave a deposition about the smearing of Greg Pouncey, which cost him his chance of becoming superintendent. And we obtained a copy of that deposition. Beth, there was a lot of smoking guns in there, it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, because this whole thing comes down to, like, they knew going into it that he hadn't done anything wrong, but they wanted to try to get that superintendent's seat moved around. But then once they even had the information that this was baloney, they didn't do anything to try to say, okay, sorry, our bad, to rectify the situation. They just let this man's name get smeared, and, I don't know. I don't see it working out so well for Mary Scott Hunter when she runs for lieutenant
Well, Mary
governor.
Scott Hunter, board member, she's running for lieutenant governor, and several other folks down there. They seem to be the ones holding the smoking gun, or at least it's at their feet.
It is at their feet, and I think they put it there. Apparently, this looks like a scheme to try to get who they wanted as superintendent, and just so that the viewers know that Pope was the IT guy that Meyer went to go through all the emails and all the back checking and channeling and figure out who got what email when. But it looks like they pushed the envelope, and when they got to where they saw that he wasn't guilty of this, they just, like Beth said, dropped it, but left
Right.
the man's reputation on the line for an entire year.
Well, Mr. Popes became very concerned because Mary Scott Hunter and Philip Cleveland had him in these meetings. Mary Scott Hunter insisted, even though she has no authority over Mr. Pope's job, insisted she be there. And he eventually, talked to his brother, who I think is an attorney, and said, what do I do? She's pressuring me to come to these meetings where they're planning a coup, basically, or scheme.
Yeah. Well, she didn't have good intentions, and she ruined a man's reputation and had an anonymous complaint filed. It was all wrong. It was backroom stuff, and she cost a good man a job, and I'm happy he's filed a lawsuit against him.
I agree.
Oh,
with
yeah.
that.
At the end of it-
I hope they put
he's
the
got a-
rope around her neck on
And
this
he's got a
deal.
good lawyer representing him.
Right.
All right, well, that's going to have to be the last word. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us, because we watch them. Welcome back to The V, a special segment, web only, with Chief Justice Roy Moore. I'm always going to call you Chief Justice. It's hard for me to call you Judge Moore because I don't know if you know this. The first time Susan, my wife, served on jury duty, you were the attorney. Yeah. And then the second time she served on jury duty, you were the judge. Yeah. And, she recalled you.
She goes back a few years.
Yeah. She's a lot older.
She's a lot younger than I am.
Yeah, she's a lot younger than I am, too. I was going to say,
Yeah.
But she's, you have a book out called Abuse of Power. This is about your experience.
It just came out, and it's about the Supreme Court's gay marriage decision.
Yeah.
And no matter what you think about the decision, it was an abuse of power. They had no right to rule on that. And 4 dissenters, which I cover in this book, clearly said that. They said it was not even constitutional what they did. And most people don't read their opinions. So I put their opinions in my opinion. This is an opinion I wrote in API. And it covers when the Supreme Court can abuse its power and what we should do about it.
And I think I'm going to get a copy and read it because I tried to follow all of that, and it became such a hot button issue that you couldn't really say much about it without getting shouted down. So we didn't have a discussion. We had a shouting
And
match.
this is documented. It's documented with 5 Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, 5 Presidents of the United States, 17 Associate Justices over 23 United States Supreme Court cases. And I use things like the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, Blackstone's commentaries, historians' commentaries, the Constitution, Declaration, the Bible, everything in the world. I put in this to show why this is correct.
Okay. Well, I look forward to reading it because I didn't understand everything that happened. I just was sort of a witness to what happened. I did understand what happened when the JIC filed their complaint against you. I think that was an egregious abuse of power and that you were removed by a unconstitutional Supreme Court. But that's just my opinion. They obviously don't like that.
You know, one thing they never talk about, Bill, is that on June 7th, 2016, Callie Grenade, the judge in the Southern District that started same-sex marriage in Alabama, ruled against our Constitution, actually came out with an order in Strasser that said basically what I put out in my order to the probate judges was correct. Those injunctions still existed. And she pointed out that the Alabama Supreme Court left them existent even after I put out my order, and that she then put out her order on June 7th, 2016. And so what I did, what I said in my order was exactly what they did. But no one wanted to address her order because it contradicted the agenda they had set up that I told probate judges to disobey her.
And then what happened next was, you know, the liberal side of the equation came in and accused you of basically committing a crime. And then they sealed the entire process. And we will never know what happened. And they also set precedent that anything that happens in that Judicial Inquiry Commission under them is secret from the people of Alabama. I mean, that's like a third world state.
That's right. It's all secret. It's all covered up. And the judges that sealed that case did so to hide their wrongful conduct in the case by failing to recuse, and hide the fact that 2 justices recommended the JIC be investigated. But
that's what
it was
we've
all
always
covered up.
Well, and you know, we filed a lawsuit, you joined our suit, and it was rejected, and the rest of the media throughout the state just turned a blind eye. We called them and said, why don't y'all help us? They said, well, they didn't want to come.
They fall into the thing that if judges seal a case, they've got a reason, which they do, and sometimes cases can be sealed to protect the litigants from doing something right in divorce cases and so forth, but not to hide the judge's wrongful actions.
Right, and you were the only person that could be harmed that had a party to the case, right?
Yeah, the JIC could be harmed because 2 justices recommended investigation of them. But that's not a reason to hide the case.
Right.
In fact, that's a reason to let the case out so somebody can be investigated.
Sure.
But they didn't do that.
Well, you know, I've heard from them all, and they're like, oh, we did the right thing, we did the right thing. And
Well, they won't tell me that.
And I said, if you did the right thing, then show us all the proof.
They won't tell me that, Bill.
No.
They know better.
Yeah, well, you know I believe them. Let's get back to this, the dirty part of politics, as we've all experienced. Mitch McConnell, you know, was listed in Politico as waging war down south. If this is the kind of warfare they wage in D.C., no wonder people are crying.
No wonder we consider Congress corrupt.
Yep.
When they will put out something that is completely false, no factual basis, and print it and put it out on all the media and the radios, and then exclude the candidate and say, well, he didn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
Well, the candidate had everything to do with it.
Sure.
Everybody knows what they're putting out.
Yeah.
And what they put out was actually false. They said I took money while I was a Supreme Court justice from the foundation. I never did that. Nothing shows that. They know that. And then they said it raised over $1 million. Well, if you average out what I was paid by the foundation, it's like $67,000 a year. And they couldn't even pay what the board allocated, so I had to take a promissory note for that. But I never received the money.
But the thing, this ad that came out against you is the most, I mean, to me, it is despicable because it is just one lie after another. And as a journalist, I mean, Brandon has taken the thing apart over at APR and has shown they just lie after lie after lie. But I haven't ever seen one this bad.
media should be very careful about publishing reports that are known to be factually incorrect without checking them out, and they've got notice now, they can be sued.
Yeah.
Because not for me as a candidate, but the foundation is not a party to this
Right.
campaign.
Right.
And it has hurt them tremendously, and they better be looking at what they're putting on television because they can be sued.
Do you, why are they, I mean, I know why they're so desperate to keep you and even Congressman Brooks out, but the ends that they've gone to and the millions and millions, I mean, what does that say?
Well, when they have fundraising dinners in Washington, D.C., at $10,000 a plate, I've never played for a plate of food for $10,000. But
There
when
must
they
be
have
some good eats.
and it's in Washington. It's
Yeah.
not the people of Alabama. It's not the people. They're trying to control the vote of the people in Alabama for their candidate, and they should be rejected totally, because that is an insult, whether I'm running or not, for them to use millions of dollars. They've already used 3.5, they say.
Yeah.
I think it's more. But they've pledged $6 to $8 million more in a runoff. In other words, if I'm in a runoff, or if Mo Brooks is in a runoff, or anybody's in a runoff, they're going to spend $6.8 million, or $6 to $8 million, I should say.
To elect a guy whose biggest claim to fame was he was a lobbyist for 20
That's right.
odd years, then got elected attorney general and recused himself from every important case in the state.
It's
Best
astounding.
government money can buy,
It's
right?
astounding. And then to accept an appointment from the governor he's supposedly investigating.
And he said, I never said he was investigated. And we had pointed out time and time again where everyone knew he was investigated.
Well, that's what the House said. They said they're stopping him because he's investigating.
Right.
I mean, you got to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll just add one. If he gets elected, we'll add one more liar to the lying liars that are up there.
We need to change in Congress. We need to change in the Senate. We need to change the rules of the Senate. The rules of the Senate are unconstitutional. And nobody's going to bring this up like I will. And I do know the law, do know the Constitution, and I think I could help President Trump push the agenda that the American people and the people in Alabama want. With regard to health care, it should be repealed. It should have already been repealed. With immigration, we should stop illegal aliens coming across. That's against the law. That's the president's job. We have courts stopping the president from doing his job. And it's a ridiculous situation.
Well, you are a man of your word, and you are a polarizing figure. And that is Alabama, I think, in a nutshell. That's my opinion.
We dare defend our rights, and we dare defend them.
Yep. Well, I feel the same way. Thank you, Judge Moore. Appreciate you joining us. You've been in a special session with Chief Justice Roy Moore. Thank you for watching.